You are looking at a methane graph. This is over a long period of time. You see an exponential curve, and it's quite significant. And that curve itself, that increase, that acceleration, can't be related to cows. I mean, I think you know that. I think a fifth grader would know that. And when you look at X-ray photography of the shallow Arctic Ocean and you see methane plumes by the dozens, notice some of them are kind of linear. And I find it quite amazing that this phenomenon is still being overlooked in favor of cow flatulence. Now, what drives the cow flatulence theory is a study, I think, done out of New Zealand that actually said cow belching produced more methane than cow flatulence. But this is methane bubbles trapped in a bay in ice. When that melts, what do you think is going to happen? That's like 70,000 cows flatulating constantly, for an hour or so. You know, we see receding ice pack, we see ice fields receding, we see bizarre methane figures in the ice sheet. That's kind of weird. 7,000 methane pockets waiting to blow, and that's on top of the ones that have already blown. And this phenomenon was not well known, but the Russian Siberian hole, we thought it was a sinkhole, was not a sinkhole, it was a blowhole. And when you heat up gas, methane has a high mass to volume when you heat it up. When you see the tundra melt, this is the permafrost, when you see that melt, all of those little pockets there are blowholes, methane. And you're talking thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of gallons. And I think this guy started the whole methane blowhole phenomenon. And it had been happening, but it sure called everybody's attention to it. It got a lot of attention. But then they find that the offshore energy platforms are putting out twice of what they estimated. Why? Well, because it really wasn't being monitored and it wasn't accurately being reported. Imagine that. Didn't see that coming. And in fact, the oil and gas industry, all on its own, puts out as much methane as, quote unquote, 9 billion cows worldwide. The methane coming off of all oil exploration, oil harvesting, and refining, that equals what the cows put out. But now, whoops, well, it's actually twice as much as estimated. In fact, the Four Corners and even this part of Texas was found to put out at times, not consistently, but at times, 11,000 tons in 24 hours. That's a lot of cows. And so if you were to believe the high volume of methane being reported out of the New Zealand study, which has not, it has actually failed to been duplicated by anybody else. I don't know how you measure methane in cow breath without putting a tube down the cow. So give me a break. I don't know how they would do that unless they like really confine the cow and in a closed area and measure the methane, but then you would have to have it airtight, and then you would suffocate your cow. So tell me how cow belching was measured. And this is infrared and special photography showing you, looks like clouds. That's actually invisible in regular light. That is methane coming off of one part of a refinery station, and it's just pouring out. And there's a website out there that has actually streaming footage of these leaks. This one is astonishing. It looks like a flame, doesn't it? It's invisible in regular light, but it's a high volume methane plume coming out of a refinery. So and it seems like it's constant. The video of this shows it being constant. So you have to pack 70,000 cows in that building and flip a switch. Then you look at the newly discovered methane plume holes just in one section of a coastal region, and you see hundreds. And if it's one coastal region, it will be all coastal regions. Anywhere where there's oil exploration, there will be blowholes and methane plumes. Seems like methane and oil go together. And it's amazing everywhere to look, even off the coast of New Jersey, they're finding methane plumes. So that if you were to believe the study, it was accurate, and they didn't just find then still there's no way that the cows are the cause of our methane issue. Over spanning miles, sometimes these plumes do half a mile, and they, a half a mile of cows doing this constantly. That's a lot of cows doing. I mean, we shouldn't be eating these cows. We should be hooking it up to hoses and harvesting their methane, and stop the drilling. Just feed the cow. But these plumes are everywhere. Florida, they're finding them. Southern Cal, Mexico. You don't even know how many plumes Mexico is putting out. So you can, that red line, you can attribute that sharp increase into that every cow on planet Earth got a sudden case of gastritis and passed it on to the offspring. I don't know. I mean, give me a break. The thing too is methane does dissipate, so it's trying to get rid of it, but something's overwhelming Earth's ability to dissipate its own methane. This is an interesting photo. This is a methane plume out of Los Angeles, that big accident, 111,000 tons or something like that of methane. Just below the plume is Porter Ranch, a ranch. Yes, and if you look it up, Porter Ranch has a lot of cows on it, and I'm just looking for the cow poop, degradation plumes. Like, I just didn't see any plumes coming off of Porter Ranch, right next to the methane leak. Even old graphs showed you a trend that you should have seen coming. We all seen coming that we reported on as early as 2014. And back then we were saying, look at this trend. This is concerning. So our global food supply is taking a big hit and will continue to face pressure. It's not going to go away. This is a half-mile plume, and it's one of 117 plumes discovered on this type of imaging. 117. So it disturbs me to see the trend. I mean, you have to know where we're headed. I mean, if you study this stuff, if you look at it, if you study this science, you can see where we're headed. So what's happening today all around us makes perfect sense. Yeah, you can believe that if you want. But I encourage you to plant food and plant a garden, and I encourage you to do that as swiftly as you can. I don't see any other way. And I wish I did, but I don't. And so, I mean, and most of us don't have 3 years of back supply. And remember, canned goods are still edible as long as the can isn't blowing up and pooching out and making gas on the inside of the can. As long as that doesn't happen, your canned goods are good until that happens. And yeah, they may carry more metal in it though. So when you see somebody write an article, and somebody in The Guardian wrote an article, and I read The Guardian, and I like The Guardian, and I refer to it lots of times, and I appreciate their work. But when somebody writes an editorial that looks like a report, looks like journalism, and they sell you on the cow flatulence as being the cause of methane. Meanwhile, nobody talks about the UV index being 14 in some places. And remember, in 2004, the highest index was 10, and then they raised it to 11 and up. I wonder what up means. And so, and the methane is concerning because it's much stronger of a greenhouse gas. And if you've got already this radiation cooking the earth, creating bizarre heat maps, and it's disturbing to see imagery that kind of suggests, you know, a little darker projection. So sometimes you see faces in the sky. Sometimes you see faces directly in front of you in the flames. Sometimes you see faces in superclusters. And sometimes you see all kinds of things in and on the ground that defy explanation. And this is an example of an old map. This shows you sources of methane, and look how low the permafrost is, way on the right. Look how high the wetlands are. And look how fossil fuels and cows were almost equal. Can you believe that? But now the fossil fuels have found out to be doubling that, so they're almost putting out as much as the wetlands. But now over there on the right, the permafrost is where all the methane is stored. What's over on the left is just a drop in the hat. And when the permafrost went on the right lets go of what it has stored, it will make the wastelands look like, how do I want to say that? Insignificant. So the trend is there, so project it forward. What's that mean for you and me? So it means you can just go silently into the night, or you can try to do something. And if we have family, most of us try to do something.